I grew up in a city where the names were more poetic than the places. Churchgate, Chandivli. I was the daughter of two immigrants into the city, so I came with no legacy. I knew just my little patch of land and I knew it really well. I knew how many black pigs there were in Marul village. I knew how many speed breakers there were on the road to Sahar airport. Everything outside was just another jungle. So in 2005, when this human resources person spelled out the word Chinch Pokli on the phone, I laughed. I'd heard the word before. I'd heard it in a flop movie called Roop Ki Rani Choro Ka Raja. Sridevi's character was called Princess Chai Mein Chini of Chinch Pokli. He didn't find it funny, but for some reason he offered me the job. I thought that this area would be somewhere in rural Karnataka. It turns out it was in Bombay, South Bombay. Not the South Bombay of the posh girls and the Parsi accented English, but the South Bombay of the mill workers who wrote the history of this city in their yarns and their dyeing and their weaving and clothed the rest of the country with all the work that they did. It was all gone by the time I moved into that area. It was all lost to years of labor strikes and union negotiations. The buildings around there had been lying under legal contracts and cases running for years on end. Very little remained of the people who had once lived there. Just one broken window somewhere, one weed-encrusted gate. That's all that said that a set of lives were lived here once that don't exist anymore. I'd walk in every day in my Van Heusen suit, my high heels, new economy striding in very confidently over the old. But these buildings spoke to me, and the poet in me joined hands with the historian and wrote odes of love to the city. Mills to malls, I said, tread respectfully when you walk over the bones of my city's dead past. A year later, I was bowed down with the pressures of the corporate world. I decided to take a walk outside the back gate, outside my office. It was the first time I was doing that. I opened the gate and it was as if I had fallen through a time warp. On one side, there was a broken mill, of course. That's what you found everywhere you went. But on the other side, there were the kind of shanties and shops that you would only see in the 1980s. The shops were selling phantom cigarettes, and there were kids playing with cycle tires and sticks. I took a little walk down the road, and at the very end, there was this board that said cotton green. I looked at that and I said, I think I'm dreaming, and I came right back to office. I thought that I must have had a sunstroke because too much sun can do that to somebody who lives their entire life inside an office cubicle. I looked it up on the internet, but there was nothing at that time about cotton green. The next day, my curiosity pulled me out back there again, and I found there was a railway station, but it looked very different from the stations that I'd known. It had cobblestones instead of the broken stones that I knew in Andheri and Dadar. And Cotton Green Station had a train line that went all the way to Andheri. So this patch of land connected to my patch of this city by one train line. I started taking that train line every day because it was as if I was trying to trace my history, my lineage through that train ride every day. A few weeks later, it was the end of summer, and the newspaper carried an article which had a familiar word that jumped out at me. It was a story about the end of summer, and it said that flamingos took flight every year from marshlands. And it was accompanied by a National Geographic style photograph. I looked at this with some skepticism because I think flamingos are, with their long wings, they look so pink and ridiculous to be real. Flamingos really belong only in Alice's Wonderland, not in Bombay. But this article said that Cotton Green was the station to get down at if you wanted to go and see those marshlands. I was still very skeptical, but that morning when I got down from the train, I looked up expecting to see birds flying overhead. Of course, there were none. Then I took out the newspaper, Cotton Green, Flamingos. Real birds, real station. That day, I went out of town. I came back a week later, and by then the monsoons had already begun. First, I hoped that the flamingos had had a good flight, and then I said, I must have dreamed it all. But the next year, the newspaper carried another article about flamingos, this time with a different picture. So this time I said, someday I'll take that train line down, and instead of turning right to go to office, I'll take a left and I'll go see the marshlands. Someday I'll do that. Every day, I took that train line down. The first day I got down, I said, I'll do this just as soon as I finish this meeting about my bonuses. Right after I finish that important conversation with my boss. It's really hot today and I've got a client presentation after this. I'm wearing high heels. I don't really feel like trampling all over marshlands. At the end of the week, I got transferred back to the Andheri office. Every day I think about someday I'll take that train line down, not because I need to go to office, but because I need to take a left turn and explore something beyond what I knew. That day never really came. I don't know whether the Flamingoes exist anymore. Cotton Green has been dubbed Lower Kolaba, and the mills have been broken down. There are more and more malls coming up in those areas. But every day I live and breathe among people who are struggling to find inspiration in the city, people who are bogged down with service tax and legal notices, people whose lives may be changed like this by one judgment in Delhi or even the Bombay High Court. And I think inside my head I know of a different city. I know a city where mill workers' children are chewing on phantom cigarettes and where women are selling fish straight out of the sea. And I know that this island, this Annapurna blessed Portuguese princess's diary fishing village of an island, has a history that gives poets a space as much as any other place in the world. My city has flamingos.